So we know that Daniel likes to lie. We know that he likes to be creative with the truth and rearrange things so that they are in his favour. So he will tell you stories like, I offered them my phone, and then in another instance, because he's trying to make Malaya look bad, he says they took our phones, mine and Malaya's. He's worked very hard to try and convince people that he's buddy-buddy with the RCMP and that he has the inside scoop on the investigation. So on one hand, Daniel is helping investigators, I guess, every time he opens his mouth. Because he comes out with his lies, he changes his story, he puts a spin on those stories that are out there already. So these are all things that can be used as evidence against him down the track. These are helping to build a solid case against him. But on the other hand, it really is muddying the waters and causing so much confusion. Especially when you have content creators who chat with Daniel and believe everything he says and repeat everything he says as if it is gospel. So in this video, I want to address what is currently being put out there with regards to the boot prints in the pipeline. Because once again, there is misinformation being put out. Now in this instance, this appears to be yet another one of Daniel's attempts to discredit the RCMP. Honestly, the guy is an oxymoron. On one hand, he will be talking like they're his best buddies. He name drops and he talks about all these things that, make us think that he's got an inside scoop on the investigation. But then, on the other hand, he turns around and he makes comments that are intended to gaslight RCMP and make them look like a bunch of Keystone cops. What he doesn't realise is that him doing that doesn't make a difference. Whether or not we believe his stories that make RCMP look like they're maybe not doing their best job doesn't matter, because it is not going to affect how they do their job. So RCMP really don't care if people out there are believing Daniel and thinking that they're not doing their job or that they dropped the ball early on, which is something we've heard so much lately. And when you have a look at the people who are saying it, it is the usual commenters. The people who are, a lot of them are fake accounts that can be traced back to Daniel's family. And then, of course, there's the ones that just simply believe everything they hear and they repeat it. Daniel is essentially hedging his bets. On one hand, he wants people to think that he's in tight with investigators so that he can put out stories and people will believe him because, of course, he has the inside scoop. But on the other hand, he also wants people to think that the RCMP are incompetent so that anytime there is new information that comes out that shows him in a not so good light, he can pull out that story. And he's worked so hard on it that yes, there are people who now simply anytime there is a discussion of RCMP make comments in people's videos or go in the chat and saying, well, they dropped the bundle, they dropped the ball, they screwed up this case. This case will never be solved. And of course the irony in that is that the more that Daniel comes out saying stuff like that, the easier he's making their job. Because he's giving them more evidence against him every time he comes out with a changed story or a new lie. So lately, what is starting to become the accepted narrative is that the boot print was found at around 1 a.m. in the morning, this being the early morning of May the 3rd, so the first overnighter after the children were reported missing. Now, I will come back to that and explain why that is a convenient story to be using, but I'll also show you why it is inaccurate. Now, the thing is, I absolutely adore Paula from Plunder True Crime. She does an amazing job. And when this case first came out, she spent hours going through Broadcastify and collecting audio clips from Broadcastify. Now, she didn't have the advantage of knowing that Daniel was going to come out with multiple versions of every story. She didn't have the advantage of knowing that there were going to be all these players trying to give different accounts of what happened, trying to twist the truth. And she didn't have, obviously, the knowledge that down the track it might be worthwhile to know what time those boot prints were found in order to show that, once again, Daniel is lying. And of course, without an intimate knowledge of the case, she skipped a lot of the audio because, of course, unless you have spent hours poring over maps, unless you have spent hours poring over documents or listening to interviews, then there is parts of the dispatch that you may listen to and think, yeah, that's not connected. So while Paula made, I believe, 3 videos of dispatch audio dating from the 2nd of May to the 5th of May, I am currently up to the evening of the 4th of May, and I have made 5 videos, 5 hours worth of dispatch audio. Now, that said, Paula got most of the really crucial things in her videos. So once again, I'm not criticising her in any way. She did an amazing job with the knowledge that she had. So you will have seen where I've started dropping these dispatch audio videos. And what I've done, which makes them a little bit different, is that I have got timestamps throughout those videos so that when you find something like the discovery of the boot prints, you can reference the timestamp. If you wanted to find the exact time of the discovery of the boot prints, then you could go to Broadcastify, find that exact timestamp, download that entire half-hour block, and figure out exactly where that audio sits within that half-hour block. In terms of my videos, obviously, I ran it through an editor and pulled out all the silence, because otherwise, can you imagine even just the first 6 days of search? That's far too many hours worth of videos. And what would be the point? People could just go onto Broadcastify and listen anyway. Now, I will admit that in my videos there's a lot of chatter over, people needing to be picked up from where they've been searching, people signing on, people signing off, etc. But the reason I put that in is because basically I have included all the dispatch audio starting from May 2nd, so that for those people who do not have a subscription to Broadcastify, they've got access to every single bit of audio, regardless of how important it is. But getting back to what I was saying here about the boot prints, we have a discussion on Paula's video about the boot prints. Now, like I said, because her audio isn't 100% of the dispatch audio, and because she is a very, very busy person. She has other commitments. She covers other cases. She's basically downloaded all the dispatch audio, ran it through to get rid of the silence, whacked it all together and put it out. So it's harder to actually figure out what's happening where, because it seems that there have been instances where perhaps there are bits of information missing or the audio is mixed up. So what I've done in this video is I've collected the relevant bits of audio relating to the boot prints, plus a little bit of audio after the discovery of the boot prints, because I think that is causing a bit of confusion too. Now you'll notice that I have started using my watermark again on my videos. That is for the obvious reason that there is that one particular content creator who can't be bothered putting in the time to do his own research, to collect his own clips, and is basically just plagiarising my content. Now, I have no problems with content creators discussing my content and giving me credit for any discoveries I make, or giving me credit for resources that I've created. I'm not saying that I have a problem with that. I have a problem with creators who, less than 12 hours after I make a video, come out, make a video of their own, where they're basically plagiarising what I've just done earlier and claiming that they've made this wonderful new discovery. Especially when other creators run with that and give them credit for that wonderful new discovery. So where I'm headed with this, I've just mentioned that I've put out 5 videos so far of dispatch audio that has timestamps throughout. And I didn't think people would be dishonest over it, doing things like using the dispatch audio and zooming in so you can't see the writing on the top of the screen where I put the time, so that people don't know that it's come from my video. That dispatch audio is there for people to use as a reference. But if you are a content creator, please do me the respect of crediting me for that audio, of crediting me for that video. Each one of those 1-hour videos represents somewhere between 8 and 10 hours worth of work. By the time I get the clips off Broadcastify, run it through an editor to remove all the sound, all the silence, create the actual video to go with the audio, and of course listening through the audio in order to edit out any additional silence that got missed, or to edit out any additional audio that's not related to the case. So there's a heck of a lot of work that goes into that dispatch audio, into those videos. So, a little bit of decency, just please give me credit for that if you are using my dispatch audio. Now, this is probably neither here nor there for a lot of people, but Broadcastify is a paid subscription if you want to use the archives. If you want to listen to it in real time, it's free to listen to, but if you are using the archives, you have to pay a subscription. Now, I can't remember what length I paid for, but the subscription that I took out so that I could get all this audio was $45 Australian, which may not sound like much to some people, but for me at this point in time it is a significant outlay. So I don't think it's unreasonable to request that creators actually do give me credit when they use my content. Right, with that out of the way, let's go back to talking about the boot prints. So, like I said, the story that Daniel is pushing right now is that the boot prints were found around 1 a.m. Now, someone gave me a heads up that that Turkey guy, having had more conversations with Daniel, was putting out information that Daniel had given him regarding the boot prints, talking about this 1 a.m. discovery, etc., but also adding to the misinformation. So I'm going to play that, and then I'm going to clear it all up for you so that hopefully people can, if there are questions again over the boot prints, people can direct them to this video.
So let's see. Right here goes, don't get, they were ending the night shift. This ends at 1:07. This was a major fail. Search manager. Don't get confused following recordings. Oh, yes. So, yeah, a lot of this is just because this was clips, but it was shortly after they found the boot prints. Like, they ended up closing it down. And they talk about it right here. The kids' boot prints were found on the pipeline. You can access through Broadcastify.
Okay, so he kind of skimmed over it there, and there's more audio later, but I'm not going to play that. So basically what has been said here in this document, whoever wrote this, but clearly it seems to be yet another bit of misinformation from Daniel, or someone who thinks they're really smart and they've just completely got it all wrong. So what they're saying here is they're claiming that the recording was made at around 1:30 a.m. on the morning of May the 3rd. And they're saying at 1:06 they said they were ending for the night. And they're saying that ends at 1:07:05. I have no idea. I'm guessing this has to be from Daniel because it is blatant misinformation. And in fact, if you have the Broadcastify account and you go to the relevant time frame, which is not this time frame here, like I said, you'll be able to figure out what's going on. So they go on to say, I literally almost died when I heard the guy on the scanner say they were packing it in for the night and heading home. And like I said, this Turkey guy goes on to criticise the RCMP and agrees with this bit of information here that how shocking is it that they discovered these boot prints and then they just packed it in for the night and left them there. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. And I think it's fair to say that this video is a good lesson in why you don't take people at their word, especially not Daniel Martel, especially not someone who is trying to discredit the RCMP or the searchers for the benefit of Daniel Martel, but you do your own research. Apparently this Turkey guy doesn't have the Broadcastify account. He hasn't subscribed to that. Because otherwise maybe he would have gone and listened to that time period and would have realised that there's nothing in that time period regarding the boot prints. Now, I will come back and play the bit of Paula's dispatch audio that he played to back this claim up, simply so that you can see that it is identical to the audio that I'm going to play for you, with a timestamp that shows you when all this occurred. But first of all, let's have a look at what is written in the documents, which I believe may be where this lie was created from. So this is based on a statement from Amy Hansen. You all know who she is by now, I would imagine. She's the search manager that we saw do a few news media interviews. And if we go down to part D, Boot prints were found on the pipeline by GSAR Friday night into Saturday morning. There were clumps of them and they were two different sizes. She said they were small in size and corresponded to what children would wear. They focused their search in that area because of the boot prints. They did grid searches in the area because of the boot prints and expanded out to waterways in that area as well. Now, I just want to point out first of all that as search manager, Amy Hanson's job was to sit at base and manage searches. She did not work 24/7. So when these boot prints were found, it appears that she was not even on shift at the time because you do not hear her in any of the dispatch audio around that time. This information in the document would have come from a report written by Amy, which would have been based on a report written by the searchers who discovered the boot print. Now, I'm not sure why here it is referred to as clumps of them in two different sizes, other than that perhaps in the location where you hear the audio referring to a boot print, when it was looked at in daylight, they probably saw a few clumps because it was dark when this was found. It was overnight, but it was early hours of the morning. Now, first of all, just so you can see that there's no confusion here, and I am referring to the same dispatch audio that is referred to in this document, I'm going to play you what the turkey guy played.
We'll walk up the gas pipeline trail there, and there's definitely some child-sized footprints in the mud here that are still visible. They're a bit eroded from the heavy rain, but they're still visible. So, not sure if you'd like us to continue on up the trail or what you'd like to do. Over.
So they were still visible. I'm going to mute this here. All right, you can unmute. They were still visible. It's been heavy rain. This was around 1:30 in the morning, and they closed shop a little bit after this.
Halifax Command, Rescue 2, over. We'll walk up the gas pipeline trail there, and there's definitely some child-sized footprints in the mud here that are still visible. They're a bit eroded from the heavy rain, but they're still visible. So, not sure if you'd like us to continue on up the trail or what you'd like to do. Over.
Hang on, I'll let you talk. Let Greg tell you what he wants. Yeah, Lee, the gentleman that was here said that he broke some branches that he left out over the trail. So if you see those, that'd be great. But if you can send us coordinates or record coordinates of the footprints, if you're feeling up to it, I definitely recommend seeing if you can find anywhere track tracks where it goes off. And, you know, you guys want to keep walking it until you don't find tracks anymore. That's good, but just log them. Over.
Yeah, I've marked one set up on top of the hill with a stick and just a green nitrile glove. But I can go back and then get some flagging tape out of my bag or just keep walking it. But they're definitely child size, and it's hard to tell how fresh they are with the rain from last night.
Yeah, and copy, when you take photos of them, do you have anything to do, anything of reference for a scale, a ruler, your hand or something, an iPhone, etc.? Over.
Yeah, I've got my notebook, which is 6 inches, so it'll give you good reference.
And copy, let us know if you find any more clues. Over.
And Rescue 2, over. Yeah, I think we'll return to base. I think we're probably talking kilometers to get to that trail intersection that Buddy had referenced. So I don't think it's something Don and I are outfitted to do tonight. Over.
Okay. All right, Greg was listening, so we heard what you said.
All right, we'll return to base. Over.
So as you can see quite clearly, the time period that we're talking about is between 4:18 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. Now, what is important to note here is that the search did not stop at all in those early days. There is a gap in the audio, in the dispatch audio, for probably about an hour and a half, where people were out searching and weren't contacting base, didn't need to contact base because they had tasks that they were working on. But not only that, that first night you had rain. So you can hear, if you listen through all the dispatch audio, you can hear the drone operators saying, we're done for the night because of precipitation. The rain was interfering with their success with the drones. You had searchers who had been going for days looking for that kayaker and had come directly from that search across, and they were done for the night because they'd done 16 hours or something. But there were plenty of people still out searching. They never shut down for the night. What they are probably referring to as this 107 would have been a switchover of the manager who was basically sitting there listening to the radio and directing people when they call in. So the guy that you heard saying, this is what I want you to do now that you have these boot prints in sight. The searchers all arrived at different times throughout the day or into the evening. And if you listen through all the dispatch, you will hear when searchers start, they give a time saying, give us a time call after, for example, 12 hours. So it's not like everybody suddenly downed tools at one particular time and went home. The search did not stop. Now, the other thing that was claimed in that bit of writing was, don't get confused by the recordings, because the creator just pulled up all the scanner from the local fire department into one long recording. Yes, but there was no timestamps in there, and like I said, there were gaps in the recording. So I can understand the confusion, but I think what they're trying to do, and I haven't listened back through Paula's audio because I've listened to so much dispatch audio in the last week that going and listening to Paula's would just do my head in. But if I'm pretty certain that if you were to listen to Paula's dispatch audio, they're probably referring to something that negates this whole claim of them downing tools for the night. That's what I'm guessing is going on here. It's a bit of gaslighting. It's a bit of an attempt to control the narrative. Because otherwise, why would you say that? It's irrelevant. And of course, it also downplays the incredible amount of work that Paula put into getting that dispatch together. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. I've spoken to Paula about the amount of time that went into that dispatch. It's not an easy task. Now, like I said, I played the run-on audio, the next bit of dispatch, straight after it, so you could hear what was going on. That was a different team saying that from their location, heading to a task that they had been given, they weren't fitted out for that at that point in time. They were saying that they were done for the night. They had probably just done a 12-hour shift. This wasn't everyone downing tools and saying, oh, look, we found boot prints, let's all go home now. No, you heard the instructions being given to the searcher who actually did find the boot prints. And you heard him respond and saying, yes, well, I can go and put a ribbon there and I can go and do these things. He wasn't saying I'm done for the night. He was saying this is what I'll do. He was confirming that he was going to continue to investigate the boot prints. And in fact, the next bit of audio that I'm going to play you will show you, you'll be able to see the timestamp, and you'll be able to see just how much time was put into searching the area where that boot print was found at the time.
I made my way back to your truck through the back trails and stuff there. Did you keep heading south on foot?
Yeah, 10-4. We're on the way back now. So what you're on now is called Cumberland Road, and that meets up to the spot we were going to search. We walked it, no indications from the dogs, no prints, nothing.
All right, I'll just wait for you at your truck then.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
So that dispatch audio was between 7:17 and 7:47 a.m. So that was 3 hours after the discovery of the boot prints. And the searcher is saying, look, we walked it. We've done the area. The dogs also checked and they didn't come up with anything. So what we're seeing here is that not only did they knock down tools, but they went straight into action. The person that you heard originally saying, we've got this boot print, they continued to search the area. And it was raining. It was cold, it was wet. And these poor people were out in that condition, in those conditions, doing their best to try and find these children. They didn't down tools. They spent 3 hours trudging around the area to see if they could find any more boot prints, to see if they could find any sign of the children, and they didn't. One of the dog teams went in, and they came up empty-handed. So, just for starters, don't take anything Daniel says as being gospel. And when it comes to a channel that is sympathetic towards Daniel, a channel that has clearly not done a lot of research and does get their facts wrong, a channel that, like Daniel, likes to twist facts in favour of Daniel, maybe question the veracity of what they are saying. So as you can see, the boot print was found much later than this 1 o'clock or 1:30 time that was given. The changeover they referenced was basically the managers who were sitting on the radio for somewhere between 12 and 18 hours. Searchers were clocking on and off at different times, and the audio that you heard directly after the discovery of the boot print was a completely different group. They were referring to a completely different location. They spoke about an intersection, of roads, not the pipeline. And you heard the searcher who found the boot print continued to work the area. They worked the area for 3 hours. They got the dogs in. The dogs worked the area. Nobody clocked off and went, oh, let's forget about this boot print. From what I can tell, there were at least 2 dog teams there who worked some very long hours. Going by the dispatch audio, I think that the dog teams were actually based on site for several days and were on like an on-call basis. Because each time there is something like the boot print or the blanket, then they had the dogs there pretty much straight away. And in each instance, they were there for several hours. You can tell when you listen to the dispatch audio that everyone gave their all for this search. They didn't just down tools at any period of time in those early days. The search was ongoing. There was no instance where searchers went, hey, look, we've just found something really, really significant and we're going home now. If you take the time to listen to the dispatch, you will hear search teams talk about their tasks. So even if a search team had worked 18 hours and made a major discovery but needed to basically clock off, then another team would have been immediately tasked to that area. But let's be real, even if for just half a second the claim made by this turkey guy is true, which we know it isn't, I think most of us agree by now that the boot prints are insignificant. Either they were planted there, or they are there from a searcher being there with children. I strongly suspect that they were planted, because otherwise, why were there not more boot prints in the area? The RCMP and the search teams put in very, very long hours in those early days of the investigation. And a lot of those search teams came from out of area. So basically, they got the call. They dropped everything. They travelled some distance to get there and went straight out searching, and then put in 12-hour shifts. So if somebody at 5 o'clock in the morning decides that they're going to clock off because they've done enough hours, can we not criticise them? Because chances are they have done probably 12 hours or more. It is so disrespectful to make these false allegations about the search teams. So I hope this video has offered clarification for people, and you've seen that not only did the search teams work extremely hard, but the time given by Daniel is completely off, and the allegations that they found the boot print and then downed tools is also completely inaccurate. They worked that area for 3 hours after discovering that there was a boot print there. It was cold, it was dark, it was wet, and they still got the dog teams to come in at that time. They didn't sit there and go, oh, we'll wait till it warms up a bit, we'll wait till first light and then we'll get the dog teams in. No, those dog handlers and their dogs, they were in the thick of it as well at 5 a.m. in the morning. So on that note, I'm going to finish it there. So if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. It will help me to grow my channel. It will help me to maybe reach my goal of 7,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Also, please hit that like button. It gets these videos out there into the algorithm. And please leave a comment below. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I've been to wonder